Portis is at the Capitol for us tonight. Nancy?
Scott, no one could have predicted this a year ago. The last serious attempt at comprehensive immigration reform went down in flames 6 years ago. But that was before a presidential election where Republicans lost big among Hispanics, giving the issue new life.
The bill as amended is passed.
The bill the Senate passed today tries to address nearly every problem with the nation's outdated immigration system. Illinois Democrat Dick Durbin was one of the bill's 8 authors, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans.
Reaffirmed today what the Senate can be. When we stand together on a bipartisan basis, we can tackle the toughest issues in America.
The bill expands the number of visas available to both migrant farm workers and highly skilled workers like engineers. The bill also pours $46 billion into border security to double the number of Border Patrol agents and purchase surveillance equipment. And it gives undocumented workers the chance to gain temporary legal status and eventually citizenship if they pass a background check and pay fines and back taxes. South Carolina Republican Lindsey Graham.
It brings people out of the shadows on our terms, not theirs. You get to stay here if we decide you can stay.
But the bill will hit a roadblock in the House, where conservatives oppose a special path to citizenship for illegal immigrants. House Speaker John Boehner.
The House is not going to take up and vote on whatever the Senate passes. We're going to do our own bill through regular order.
House Republicans have not ruled out the possibility of granting illegal immigrants some kind of legal status that falls short of citizenship, but only after they get proof that the border has been secured. Whatever the House comes up with, Scott, will have to be reconciled with what the Senate passed today, a process that could take many months.
Long way to go. Nancy, thanks very much.
Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. Now, there lies in the problem that we're having with immigration reform. And this is a bill that you heard for yourself. The Senate passed, what was it, 60-something to, I forgot the figure. I think it was 62 to 38 or something. Now, this was passed in the Senate, bipartisan. A reform bill that gives you all, we'll go in later and you'll see how much it really covered all of the problems. But the main problem here was Boehner. He stopped it. He let this bill sit there for a year and a half. Other Rollins will show you exactly his excuses. You heard him at the end. He said, "We'll I don't care what the Senate passed. Right. We'll figure out our own bill." And the majority of the bill, well, I'll show you this other piece. Let's show the Boehner piece first so we get a good insight on what the problem in the Senate and in the Congress, period, is. It was Boehner holding up votes, all right?
Finally, weeks ago, I, along with the leader and the whip and Chairman Goodlatte, issued a statement that I thought was pretty clear. But apparently, some haven't gotten the message. The House is not going to take up and vote on whatever the Senate passes. We're going to do our own bill through regular order, and it'll be legislation that reflects the will of our majority and the will of the American people. And for any legislation, including a conference report, to pass the House, it's going to have to be a bill that has the support of a majority of our members. Listen, immigration reform has to be grounded in real border security. It's what the American people believe, and it's a principle that our majority believes in as well. Chairman McCall's done a good job passing a border security bill. Chairman Goodlatte is doing good work over in the Judiciary Committee. And if immigration reform is going to work, it's essential that the American people have the confidence that it's being done correctly. That's how the House will approach this issue. Well, as I've made clear, we're going to go through regular order. The Senate's going to pass their bill, it looks like today. We're going to go home for the recess next week and listen to our constituents. And when we get back, we're going to have a conference on July the 10th to have a discussion about the way forward. I don't want to make any predictions on what the outcome of that conversation is going to be, but we're going to have a conversation and determine a pathway forward.
Now you can see we all people don't remember all the obstruction that came from the Republicans when Obama was president. But we're getting a good linking, a good flashback. It seemed mild-mannered back then. Now you can see what's happening today with Trump and all the lies that he tells. I mean, I couldn't find the piece that I had before about, well, there are plenty of pieces on telling all the lies that Trump has performed. But we sit here today with Kennedy retiring this morning. So we are really in a tight spot here. I mean, there's an election coming up in November. The seriousness of this is kind of staggering. This white supremacist, there's no doubt in our minds that we have a white supremacist in the White House. Now, what do we do?
I was listening to the young lady in Queens who won the election, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I believe her last name is. 28 years old, a very striking young lady, well prepared, balanced. She never even mentioned the would-be president of the United States. This is what the Democratic Party has to do. I was talking with my father-in-law yesterday. I said, the Democratic Party has no plan. They have no program. They're not presenting anything. They need to stop talking about the guy in the White House and talk to the people with regard to what they see in terms of moving forward with their agenda. They haven't presented an agenda. This young lady that spoke this morning, Ocasio-Cortez, gosh, I can't remember her last. She has a hyphenated last name. But she has shed light on the problem of the Democratic Party, all right? They need to have an agenda, which they do not have. They cannot go forward talking about the guy in the White House. You need to tell the people, this is our plan, this is our intention, this is how we're going to do it and move forward. Trump today used the term and has been using the term Democratic obstructionists. Members of the House and the Senate met the night that Barack Obama was inaugurated, and they were at the ball and conspired to do everything possible to prevent him from getting anything done. I see that as treasonous. Those same individuals for 8 years obstructed and did nothing. And he exercised his authority by using executive orders, which every president has done. Going back, this issue of immigration, and I want folks to look this up. Type in the wetback program of 1954. Dwight David Eisenhower ran a program not unlike what this guy is doing today. History is repeating itself. They ran a million Mexicans.
That's not fair. To compare Eisenhower to Trump. I mean, that's not fair.
I'm not comparing, I'm telling you the facts. He ran 1 million Mexicans out of this country in 1954, and it was called a wetback program, all right? That tells you the mindset of this guy, Eisenhower, all right? He was no great humanitarian. They attacked Mexicans, excuse me, and forced them out of the country. This guy is no different. The Immigration and Naturalization Service of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, when we would make an arrest of a person for a violent crime or moral turpitude, we were told, notify INS. So these people could be deported if they were violent or their moral character, rapists and such. We would call every night. You know, the INS never picked up the phone. INS never came to pick up one individual in all the years that we called. We stopped calling, all right? When Castro emptied his jails, it was okay for them to bring all the Cuban convicted felons here with their tattoo markings and wreaking havoc. So the Democratic Party has to have an agenda. They have to have a plan to present to the people, this is our plan to move forward. Boehner said they were going to come up with a bill, which they never came up with.
Well, that's the whole thing. The whole thing about the difference in '54 and now is that in '54 you could do all kind of stuff and it never came to light. I mean, things were hidden back then.
No, the wetback program was out in the open.
The point that you don't have the television exposure that what Trump has today. Now, whether the Democrats have a plan or not, they're being bombarded by so many different affronts to our democracy. The plan is to keep democracy alive. Trump is a traitor. He's treasonous. He's in cahoots with Putin. He's working for Putin.
Right.
Putin has a plan to destroy this country. And Trump, there's no doubt about it. Now you see with the G7, the meeting he made enemies of Canada, Germany, and France. And these were, and said, bring Putin back. Now, is there any doubts that they're married and that they're enjoying their honeymoon and destroying America? Brother Leroy?
I think,
I always give you that one, right?
My feeling is that the Democrats do have a plan that we don't know about, because there's an article I have here. The because is that Trump is in office because of Caucasian people.
Right, okay.
Not just the Electoral College, but that sentiment that is coming to the surface with all these Caucasian women calling on the police to remove Leroy's daughter from
sleeping in the study hall.
Dorm.
Right.
You got this educated woman calling on the police to remove this Negro woman from the dorm, and you got the woman in San Francisco calling the police on the little girl selling water. You got, I mean, this is a phenomenal thing. I talked about it, I think, 2 weeks ago. You got these things happening around the country. You say, what's going on? But there's this article in the August 6, 2017 Sunday New York Times. It's in the review section. Mm-hmm. It's written by Carol Anderson, a black woman, a professor of African American Studies at Emory University in Atlanta. And the title of her piece is The Policies of White Resentment. Trump and the Policies of White Resentment. Now, what are they resenting? What are they resenting? All we want to do is get a job, have our children go to school, and
democracy.
We're not interested in your daughter. We're not interested in your son. Some Negroes are, all right? But in general, we're not. That's not what. So what are you resenting? That Obama was president?
That's it.
Like that LeBron James is the top guy in basketball?
No. He's not the top guy, man.
Right.
He's not the top.
He can't be.
Steph Curry is the top guy.
He needs a team.
So what I'm saying is that here the Democrats, seeing that their people are sliding over to Trump's bugle call. So how do you capture them back without losing your core base of black folks and so-called brown people?
Can't you blame it on white supremacy?
What do you mean?
The fact that, Trump became president because of the fact that he's a white supremacist. We know that's the fact.
Yeah.
He baited people that were white that had to experience 8 years of a black man and doing the right thing in the White House.
Yeah, he didn't do.
All right, there was a white lash against Obama. Trump is a classic example. He came up with this birther thing in 20.
The certificate.
Birth certificate.
Yeah.
Obama wasn't born in the country. He made up lies. Lies. He started lying with that one. And all these people start resenting Obama from that point.
Well,
he's not legit. They believed the lies back then because they wanted to.
That was already, that was already there.
That was going.
He just articulated it from a debate standpoint, with the 18 people he knocked out of the box.
Yeah.
All right?
Exactly.
But white resentment is white supremacy.
Right, okay.
She says white resentment.
Right.
But it's really white supremacy. When you talk about immigration, are we really talking about immigration reform, or are we talking, I'm talking we, the we here, are we talking about the addition of brown people to the population of these United States of America that can knock out Republicans in Arizona, New Mexico,
Texas,
California, Texas.
Okay.
All right?
All right. That's what we need. Okay.
You got to go
Right.
not with their narrative. We have to step back and say what's really going on based on our understanding of history. Now, and as far as the judges are concerned, but what has been happening is another article in the New York Times, and this is Sunday, November 12, 2017. The article is written by Charles Savage. It says, courts reshaped at fastest pace in 5 decades. Few hurdles in Senate. What are they talking about? They're not talking about the Supreme Court. They're talking about the Court of Appeals.
Right.
In other words, they're cutting us off before the case even gets to the Supreme Court.
And how many appointments has he gotten since he's been in office?
This thing, I don't know how, this thing here talks about, it talks about the battle plan. The battle plan that they had before Trump even took his oath of office. Courts reshaped at fastest pace. The article is written by Charlie Savage. It's November 12, 2017. It's a front page article. Once again, actual facts. Now we're reading what's going on that we don't read. We don't read the New York Times. We're not reading the Post. We're not reading Newsday. We don't read the Washington Post. We don't read the Boston Globe. We're on the train doing video games with our little thing. You understand? Men, women, children, old and young. You look over their shoulder, they doing, or they looking at a movie and laughing, and the screen is about that big. Our people, in general, America is being dumbed down. So when Kennedy retires from office, everybody's shocked. But this is the real deal. However, even before that, during the time of Bush, the young Bush, he was replacing I think they call it nonpartisan, non-political attorney generals in the various states. I'm not talking about the state attorney generals. He was positioning, he was removing them and putting in conservative and Republican state attorney generals. Now, how does that work out? It works out in terms of cases not being prosecuted from the federal level. So you have Panatello, the guy over in
Eric Garner's case.
Eric Garner case choked Eric Garner in public, and some Negroes in a police uniform were there and didn't stop nothing.
A sergeant, female sergeant.
All right, didn't stop nothing, didn't say nothing, and the guy was rewarded. The attorney, Staten Island Attorney General,
DA.
He was rewarded with the congressional seat. His name is Donovan, right?
Donovan got Gibbs' seat.
And nobody talks about that. No blacks talk about, hey man, even though our population over there might not be enough to swing a vote, but if we organized, and this is my conclusion when you said, what do we do? Black people have to organize, have to join organizations. Masons, you're affiliated with a church, but you ain't go to church. Pay some dues, whatever, tithing. Go to church, become involved. Go to the mosque, become involved. Go to the masjid, become involved. Join the parent association or the tenant or the block association, become involved. Stokely Carmichael Kwame Torre, he said, going out of the planet, when he left, when he died, he said, organize, organize, organize. The way they're beating us, in my estimation, is through, one, our lack of knowledge and pursuit of knowledge, and two, which is the twin of one, we're not organized. And when I say we're not organized, yes, there is the Canaan Baptist Church. Yes, there is the Pegasus what's the church Johnny Youngblood in?
Oh,
Pisgah.
Mount Pisgah. Right.
Pisgah. There's the church you belong to.
Christian Cultural Center.
Christian. These are solid organizations. But I don't like that church. I don't like that mosque. Join something. Become involved in something where you can begin to defend members in your group. And when I say defend, by knowledge and by calling on professional help. So
well, you can always reach out to right here in Harlem, National Action Network.
Yes,
the Reverend Sharpton.
Definitely.
But we've been through this before. If you think back, we went through this very same thing, this white backlash.
With who?
I remember sitting in a hotel room with David Dinkins the night he got elected. The look on the faces of the people when we came down to the ballroom, the look on the faces of the white people was just...
That was the 90s. So.
Yeah. Then you had Giuliani time.
Yeah.
As Giuliani attacked, the attack fell on Mayor Dinkins with his slick suits, a washroom attendant, all of that stuff.
He changes clothes twice a day, three times a day. This is what they were saying about Dinkins.
Yeah, implying he's a sweaty nigger, all that stuff. And so Giuliani, that's why, this guy is still in the game.
Very much so.
Still in the game. I remember the rally where he instigated the cops to damn near riot at City Hall, and Una Clark, who then, at that time, was in the city council, was coming into City Hall, and they called her a nigger to her face, all right? And Giuliani was ramping up that crowd of cops right there on the steps of City Hall. And this is the dangerous aspect of this all. You've got this despot Trump, and you got the devil incarnate himself in Giuliani working hand in hand. And these are two very nefarious individuals. And remember, after David Dinkins left office, Giuliani came in. And everything went downhill with Giuliani. 9/11 was the thing that people, he's the mayor, he's the savior. No, the guy had the city so split up, so divided, he's attacking the homeless. Look at this now. The squeegee men were being attacked, all right? Just as they're attacking the immigrants on the national level.
Right.
What is going on here? The same thing is going on in Israel, with Africans emigrating out of Africa to Israel. Those Israelites who are leaving the Sudans, Eritrea, and Libya, going to Israel. Putin, not Putin, Netanyahu. They're not Jews. Jews are Europeans.
I'm talking about the black Jews.
No, they're not Jews. They're Israelites. Jews are Europeans.
Right, okay.
Netanyahu.
Hebrews.
Hebrew people. Netanyahu, 4 years ago, built his wall. It was a 250-mile-long fence he built to keep these Africans from coming into Israel because they said, this is a white country. Right. And Trump is repeating everything that Netanyahu has done. And our people need to be very clear of what the Israeli government is really about. The blacks living in Israel are relegated to an area called Dimona, which is a toxic waste dump. The garbage heaps are there. Everything that is detrimental to your health is surrounding those people in that area of Dimona. There are no whites living in that area where they've relegated these Africans to. And you can go online and look it up, and they tout being proud as being white supremacists in Israel.
What about the point that Reagan, supposedly the father of the Republican Party, they always give reference to Reagan. Now, Reagan was anti-Russian, or he got the Russians to bring down the Berlin Wall.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall.
All right. How is it that the Republican Party sit back and watch Trump or the Russians come in here and influence our elections? No doubt about it. Trump, to this day, call it a witch hunt. And Boehner, not Boehner, but his replacement, Ryan, sits back and does nothing about the Russian invasion. This man sitting in the White House today should be labeled traitor, period. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Talking about collusion, he's going off to have a summit with Putin, what, in a month or so?
Sometime, next couple of weeks.
He's asked Putin to come back to the G7, make it G8 again. I mean, forget what he's under investigation for collusion with the Russians. Got 19 people indicted. His campaign manager about to go to jail. I mean, what happened to the American public fighting against the Russians? Where is that anti-Russian feeling? Why is Putin Trump's best friend? They act like they're married. I mean, this is what outrages me the most. Nobody's up in arms about the Russians. Why not?
The Russians and the Americans are working on,
white supremacy?
along with a space project up there in the sky.
Yeah.
They be running this game down here, and they sending spaceships up there, shuttles. Brother, we were talking in 1950 terms. They said the shuttles up. They said the shuttles up every day. Dick Gregory said, he said, look, man, he said, do you know, he gave me an equation, I don't remember it exactly. He said, do you know, in order for an atomic reactor to operate, they have to get something that the Russians make. He said, you know, the jet planes require engines from China. This is what he said. I said, huh? He said, he's not here to explain. I'm just telling you what he said. I'm broadening the conversation. He said, North Korea has a mineral that is almost exclusively in North Korea. He said also,
really?
This is what he said. He named the metal. There are things that are happening that we aren't aware of, but it's common knowledge. Let's say at a level up here, but you got to dig for the information. I was taught by...
But why isn't the Congress fighting against the Russian invasion?
Because, excuse me, Brother Grant,
go ahead.
When you listen to some of these programs, you will hear the word coup, C-O-U-P.
All right.
And that is maintained as what's happening with this Russian thing. It's a coup to overthrow the Trump regime because they have no proof, so they put out this thing. I'm talking about what they're saying. I'm not talking about what Leroy says. I'm just talking about the conversations that I hear on radio.
Okay.
On radio and TV and on the internet. They put out this stuff about the Russians, but there's no proof. They haven't come up with proof yet.
The proof is how Trump acts towards Putin. There's the proof right there.
Well, that's what they say when we go into certain neighborhoods.
Is there any doubt in your mind?
When we go in certain neighborhoods in Salvatore, he's friendly with Leroy, and they say, hey, he loves Negroes. You understand? So you can't guilt by association.
Is there any doubt in your mind that the Russians came in here and influenced the election? They're doing it now.
The investigation is still ongoing. It's so big, it keeps expanding. That's another thing. This octopus keeps adding more and more tentacles as time goes on. It's beyond octopus. But the thing is, see, there's a critical thing. Remember when Russia invaded the Ukraine?
Yeah.
Now, the U.S., they say, no, you can't do this, you can't do this. The U.S. is not going to do anything about that. Because this is the deal. I flew to Europe last month, right? Every military plane, every commercial plane flies on JP-54 or Jet A-1 fuel. You know where that comes from?
Ukraine? Okay.
That's right. Now, so we're buying fuel from them and have always bought fuel. Do you think the United States is going to have the commercial airlines grounded because Russia invaded the Ukraine? Tillerson was in Russia working on a deal about 3 or 4 years ago. Rosneft wanted to build a refinery. They're the big oil company over there. So Tillerson was working on having Exxon build a refinery for the Russians. He got an award from Putin. They're good friends.
Right.
the Chinese premier steps in. He says, no, 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 you don't need them. We can do this. Because everything, all the oil transactions are done in U.S. currency. They said, why are we using U.S. currency? The Chinese yuan is backed in gold. The U.S. dollar is not fully backed in gold. The dollar's worth about 17 cents. They said, while we were in Iraq, China was buying gold on the international market. Metric tons, tens of thousands of tons of gold they were buying around the world. They said, we have the gold here to back up our currency. They went to the IMF and the World Bank, said, why is the U.S. dollar the reserve currency for all these international transactions? We want in on the deal. The U.S. dollar is not worth anything. So the BRIC country, the BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, China, have said, yeah, the U.S. currency is a joke. It's a fiat currency. So when Russia sat with China to discuss this oil deal, they said, Putin said, you know, you're right. They told Tillerson, you can go home. I don't need you. They now do their transactions with their currency, and they don't use the U.S. dollar. So they've got us over the barrel. The Chinese bought most of our debt. This is another thing. So he can talk about tariffs and all that, trade tariffs, but we owe China. China bought the Waldorf Astoria. China is buying up buildings. The Chinese are here buying, and they're not individuals.
That's right.
Every Chinese businessman, not the guys down there in the takeout shops, but I'm talking major Chinese businessmen that are coming to the U.S., buying condominiums. There's a building downtown Brooklyn near the stadium. It's all Chinese. The Chinese bought all the apartments, and they're going to rent them out to their friends as they travel. They are backed by the Chinese government. The Chinese don't have money per se. The government sets them up to go into business, and that money is the money from the Chinese government. It's the same thing in Russia. Yeah.
Putin runs everything.
Well,
right?
After, according to what, this is Brother Leroy, I'm not the author of what I'm sharing, because if I claim to be the author, they come after me. They have to come after Steve Cohen, the NYU professor, go after him. But there are a couple of things. Why did they overthrow Gaddafi in Libya? Answer is another question. What happened to the gold that was in Libya? What happened to the gold? All right?
I thought Libya had the best oil.
They had gold.
They were living better there than we are here.
The gold. So there's an answer to that. All right? Quote, the pirates went in there for the gold, destroyed the country. The Ukraine was a move by NATO to wrap up the Ukraine as a part of NATO, and according to sources that are public, they said that was to drain their treasury. The Russians go in to stop that drain.
But you had a rebellion there because the
rebellion,
leader of the Ukraine
was by some Nazis.
The Ukraine was being run by Putin's puppet.
One of Putin's guys.
The guy they overthrew, had been elected.
But he was a Putin puppet.
Who isn't in that arena? Now, if you want to talk about puppets, then you go down in certain countries, in certain places.
No, we're talking about the Ukraine.
Well, I'm saying that there are other countries that have puppets.
Yeah, well.
And they have puppets right in Africa.
Well, let's deal with the Ukraine and why the Russians were controlling the Ukraine through
that oil-rich region.
Okay.
The United States has oil reserves. We're spending $3 and change for a gallon of gasoline. When my son was in Iraq, he filled up his truck for $3. $3. All right? Now, the Bushes control, they bought up, looking ahead, when they started talking about unleaded gasoline and, you know, improving the air quality, the Bush family bought up all the minerals that were needed to make the unleaded gasoline for the processing.
Right.
Just as the Kennedys collect money on liquor, the Bushes collect money on fuel, all right? They're looking down the road. So when you wake up and find out about it, you're too late to the party. These things are not going to change. You got to have petroleum. You have to run your machinery. You need lubricants. To make plastic, you need petroleum.
Okay.
All of these things. So it's an integral part of any country's economy to have these resources to run industry, which means you're employing people, which means people now can purchase and do things and feel better about themselves and their family and their children, as opposed to mass unrest amongst the people.
All right, let's come back to America and dealing with this white supremacist in the White House and the influence of Russia on our economy. We can see that Trump is in there to wreck the economy and wreck America. He's turning each of the black against white. He's got these people calling on any little slight thing that he's emboldening racism. He's emboldening people to be white supremacists. They have this backlash of Obama, and even today, underneath it all, if you have a precondition, they're eliminating that from the healthcare system. Whereas if you had an ulcer, you can't get get insurance, health insurance anymore. So all these positive things that Obama, fair man, came in and tried to be a real president to all the people, not just black people,
to all
white,
the people.
All the people. Be an American president. Live by the Constitution. We have a Constitution. This is a country of immigrants. We're the only forced immigrant here. Is a black man.
Yeah, we didn't immigrate. We were born here.
We were a chattel of slavery, chain slavery, all right? False labor. But Trump is disrupting everything. And he's too tight with Putin not to have been in cahoots with him. For all these fake lies, all this, he calls it a witch hunt. These are all lies, and this man lies when he opens his mouth.
Yeah, I think
everybody
the undermining
knows that.
of his whole campaign, I can't remember what network it was, but there was a reporter speaking to people like in West Virginia in the Midwest. So are things better now? You know, Trump promised he was going to open the coal mines and they were going to get their jobs back. All these things he's promised them, and all of them said no. No. We're now better off. He hasn't done anything for us.
Well, the legislation that he just tried to push through the Congress yesterday, he was asking for $25 billion to build his wall. And then everybody knows that Mexico was supposed to pay for that. Why? I mean, this is what I don't understand. I mean, the loudest bull crap in the world is Mexico's going to pay for the wall. How many times have you heard that? And these Congress people are actually thinking about giving him $25 billion to build his wall. Well, where's the throwback to that from anybody? Mexico is supposed to pay for it. Where's that?
The Congress is doing politics and they're not doing legislation. Their job is to write law.
But there's the biggest...
And they're not doing
wait
their
a minute.
jobs.
$25 billion to give them to build a wall that we don't need?
Until the people begin to voice... I'm talking about just the masses of people, in my mind. And you're not going to have... I mean, people are just sitting there like bumps on the log. They're not...
I don't understand.
They don't even see what you're saying out in the
How come they don't see it? That's the loudest thing. You're giving him $25 billion for a wall?
Politics of white resentment. He says he's going to build a wall. They don't even see $25 billion. They just see a wall.
But Mexico was supposed to pay for it.
According to what he had said in the Mexican
why
president.
do they believe anything he says if that turned out to be a biggest lie? And he's shutting down the government for that $25 billion?
I have a friend.
He's throwing money away.
Right.
He's giving money to his friends. All these people that, do you know what he's making out of these babies being kidnapped? He's making a fortune. His friends are making a fortune on this. This is nothing but a money maker for him. He's a con. We know him as a con. When he was elected, we said, these people, I have no faith in
He's
white
creating
people.
enemies for the United States.
I didn't realize people are that stupid in America. I mean, to elect this, make America great again,
Make it white again.
Make it
That's
white
what it
again.
is.
These children that he has abducted, that have been abducted from their parents, don't you think that is going to cause a level of resentment against this country?
Of
a
course it will.
justified level of resentment?
Of course it does.
This too has happened before. In Australia, years ago, Australia was the dumping ground for Britain. All the scum they didn't want, they sent to Australia.
Prisons.
And that's what it was. It was a
Penal
prison.
colony.
The prisoners, the inmates, took over the jail,
Right.
killed off the guards, took the weapons, and they were shooting the Aborigines. They would round up the Aborigines and tie them to trees and use them as targets. Years later, in the 1900s, they took children from the Aborigines, they took their children and gave them to white women to raise. This is, things keep coming back. When you fail to study history, you just don't, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to read. Put down the Put down the phone and all that stupid end stuff with reality TV and those wives in Atlanta. Throw that garbage out.
Well,
they took the Aboriginal children. Many of them were suicidal, totally disorganized by the time they got into their teens. It was an experiment they were doing to turn these Aborigines into white people, to think like white people. The little girl that hadn't seen her mother, and you can't have a baby laying in a bed and you don't hold it. A baby will die. That is a medical fact.
That's
You
right.
have to embrace the touch, the interaction of other human beings is necessary for life itself. And they've got babies laying there and they tell them don't interact with the children, don't touch them, do anything. You can't treat infants like that. You can't treat children like that. And what is astounding to me is that a lot of these Border Patrol officers are Latinos themselves. A lot of them are part Mexican or whatever they
course they
are.
are.
And
they're
they're more
watching it.
concerned with their job than they are with the humanity of these little infants. And
Well,
it's deplorable.
The Mexican gangsters are bringing all these people up and they're paying a pretty penny to
It's a
get
hell of a
here.
thing.
You can't be poor and come up as an immigrant.
Yeah.
You got to pay a few dollars to get here. All right, now if you want to study history, you study what the Russians did during World War II. You know, the invasion of Poland. It was Germany from one side and Russia from the other side.
Right.
People don't know this. The Ukrainians were starving in the 30s. They were sending wheat to America and they let 7 million Ukrainians die from starvation. Russian people did this. The Russians, Stalin.
To their own people.
Stalin, his own people.
Right.
The 20 million Russians that died during that time, half of them were killed by Stalin. Now this is who's running, trying to influence our election. Bring it back to Putin. Putin's nothing but a gangster. All right, and he hooked up with another gangster from New York, whose daddy's
German. He's German.
German. Oh, they're the Russians and the Germans in cahoots again to take over America. This is what we got today. You study your history. Study the Russians. They're about the slickest thing on the planet.
Well, the
They
Communist
don't get any slicker
Manifesto
than the
said
Russians.
capitalism would die
As
from
mean
within.
and nasty and take over. Look what Putin did to America in 2016. You don't believe it? Watch. Trump's going to go in and kiss him right dead in the lips. Watch. Thank you, Papa. Watch.
Oh, man.
He's Putin's bee.
I got a canker sore.
Look, here's something, not taking us off that subject, but this is June, end of June. You just had a lot of so-called graduations of black children moving from one level to another. They come out of high school, they don't know how to read and write. The jails are waiting for them, or the military, if they can get past the drug testing and intelligence testing. Our children are our future.
Amen.
Okay, now you got Trump and you got Putin and the rest of these guys. What are we going to do about the proper education of our children with artificial intelligence coming in And going back to the days of Horn and Harder, where you just put a quarter in, you got a sandwich or something like that. But the point is, we have got to begin to look, we're over time in looking at that. Who's your granddaughter going to marry? Who's your grandson going to marry? Your grandniece? You understand? The dumbing down of America is real. We have to combine our resources and not worry about converting the public school system, because that's doing exactly what it's geared to do, to dumb our children. What we have to do is begin to have Saturday schools. We have to begin to have independent school, finance them. We spend a lot of money on cosmetics, on fake hair, on
fake nails,
sneaker and t-shirt combination every weekend. I got me a pink t-shirt, I got to get me a pair of pink sneakers. The closets must be like Chris Brown's home. He has one room dedicated to shoes, all in his, and he's not the only one, dedicated to shoes, sneakers and shoes.
Because they don't know what's happening.
My point is,
they don't know the Russians are coming. They're here.
The Russians are coming.
They're here.
And they don't play. And I'm saying that from the gangster standpoint. We're not even prepared to deal with them from that standpoint.
They've been here all the time.
They've been here all the time. They've been staying in Brighton Beach.
They're down in Brighton Beach, been down there.
All right.
They're running narcotics operations. You know, they talk about gangs in New York. But when they brought all those Russians here, I had an informant who would call me. He said, "Spoon, I got a roll, a newspaper roll of currency paper. It's a big roll, as big as this table, bigger than this table, taller than this table, and just as wide. Currency paper. They're into counterfeiting. Right? They're into narcotics. I had a friend that he arrested this Russian guy out of Brighton Beach for 2 kilos of coke.
2 kilos.
2 kilos. The guy said to him, "Detective Ricky, why are you wasting your time? You and I work for the same people."
How many pounds is 2 kilos?
2 kilos is about 4.5 pounds of cocaine. So he says, "You're risking your life. We work for the same people. I'm leaving court with you. When you leave, I leave." He said, "Yeah, right." He went into the arraignment. "I told you, Detective Ricky, we're leaving together." That guy walked out of court. All right?
So you know what I'm talking about. And Trump has been dealing with them for years now.
Listen, that is the reason why he was able to do the book, The Comeback Kid. He got all his financing from the Russians.
That's right.
So he's been bought, sold, flipped over. It's booties up.
That's right.
And he's going to do whatever he has to do, because they're not going to play with him.
That's right. Because they got something on them so heavy, it's terrible. I think it's something about prostitutes peeing on a bed or something.
They said it was only a rumor. They call it a golden.
Well, his bodyguard said he was standing at the door for about an hour, and then he went to bed, so he doesn't know what happened.
I mean, this thing is
there's
crazy.
some stuff out there that his wife is going to leave him for, you know, all kind of stuff. Come on, if he doesn't hug him and kiss him when he goes over there, I'll be surprised. All right, we're going to run one more shot of what's happening here about this immigration problem. This one, the next video, I want to show you Obama again, how he tried to change things and all the lies that have been told about him. About his executive order about taking care of the DACA kids. I'll play that last video for us. I think it's the number 4, or is it 3rd? 3 already.
President Obama finally announced his impending announcement on Facebook.
What I'm going to be laying out is the things that I can do with my lawful authority as president to make the system work better, even as I continue to work with Congress and encourage them to get a bipartisan, comprehensive bill that can solve the entire problem.
Tomorrow, 8 p.m. on television, he will unveil his plan that, according to sources, is likely to offer work permits and defer deportation to more than 3 million people, including the undocumented parents of children who are American citizens or have some legal status already, if those parents have been living in the U.S. for a years. It could expand those same allowances that the president granted in 2012 to people brought here illegally as children, known as dreamers. But sources believe it will not include the parents of those dreamers and is not a path to citizenship, but a temporary renewable right to stay and work, leading some groups to already complain the president's action won't do enough. The White House Director for Domestic Policy, Cecilia Munoz, said this about its scope.
He's going to go as far as he can under the law.
But asked about that today and questions surrounding what legal authority the president does have, considering that he himself has said repeatedly he didn't have the authority to act.
They wish I could just bypass Congress and change the law myself. But that's not how democracy works.
The White House answered a bit differently.
An impartial observer would conclude that the president has sought to maximize the use of his authority to try to solve these problems. And frankly, I think that's what the American people expect the President of the United States to do.
But the other side, Republicans, infuriated by what they view as, quote, Emperor Obama far overstepping his legal bounds.
If he goes through with this and he sticks a finger in the eye of the American people with no thought about it other than this is what I want to do and I'm going to do it, then I think he jeopardizes long-term the Democrats ever to get back in power again in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, was that?
That's 2015, I think. Now, see, the reason why I showed you that, this is after Obama, because they held it up a year and a half in the Congress. You heard Boehner in the beginning there, how he wasn't going to do anything. So they never brought up initially we started off with the reform bill passed in the Senate. Now, normally it goes the other way around. You bring a bill through the House to be approved and then go to the Senate. But this one went the opposite way, from the Senate to the House. Then Boehner, you heard Boehner say that he's going to make up his own bill. All right? That bill sat there for a year and a half. That's when Obama came out with an executive order, and this is what they were talking about here. Now, as you see, because he made an executive order, because they wouldn't move, because they were obstructionists, and now we're hearing this familiar tune from Trump. But Trump's not including any Democrats in any of these equations. So Trump is the con that he is. He just, whatever he's doing wrong, he blames on the other guy. He's doing worse than I did. Now you see he's blaming Obama for all this garbage that's going on.
The politics
this super con
of resentment.
Yeah.
Blame it on the black guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Blame it on black people.
Right, exactly.
And that's what it transfers to.
That's
if the
right.
economy goes bad, it's those Negroes that are sucking up
getting all the free stuff.
Exactly.
Free health care.
Exactly.
Oh,
Plus
man,
they
that's
got all these jobs and they ain't qualified. That's affirmative action.
Yeah, of course. They're not qualified. They're Negro. What about my white superiority? You know, I am king. I mean, what? And I'm Russian too. I mean,
well,
the Russians are a trip. There's white supremacy.
We have to lay out, as you said, there has to be a plan. I think they need to stop talking about Donald, watch him, monitor him, but the Democrats, they have only a couple of months, if that. They don't even have a couple of months because the elections are in November, all right? They need a plan. They need a centered, pinpoint, focused plan of where they're going and articulate that to the general public.
You have any suggestions? Come on, you're part of this process.
They should have a plan for immigration.
Okay.
These congressmen and senators should bring forth a bill.
What do you think we should be doing?
Even if the Republicans kick it down, they can say,
let's bring up some
we
ideas
presented
right
a bill.
Here. What should we be doing?
If the Republicans will not push that bill, and they don't have, the Democrats don't have control of the House or the Senate, all right? But they can present a bill, hey, or get some where they can work together and put a bill on the table. They need to support the key issues that are affecting people, you've got immigration.
Mm-hmm.
The government right now, the Supreme Court, what was the rendering in the Supreme Court? Today they came back with a verdict. This afternoon, oh gee, I forgot.
Talking about the union?
On the unions, right. Paying union dues, where people should not be obligated, if they don't want to be in the union, to be in the... See, this is the undermining of the workers here. This is a critical piece. There are a lot of agencies have what's called a closed shop. So if you get the job, you automatically have to be in the union.
Yeah.
And conversely, I was with some police officers at the NYPD 12. They're not being properly represented by the PBA.
Right. They're not going to be.
All right? So that could be another lawsuit where they sue the union for failing to do what they should be doing to represent them. And it was interesting, the president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association was at the premiere Sunday afternoon at the Brooklyn Academy of Music on Crime and Punishment, the NYPD 12. And Ed Mullins, the PBA sergeant, said to Edwin Raymond, "We are backing you in what you do." That's the president of the union. He came there to back Edwin Raymond, and Edwin was here sometime last year. So he has put his name and his organization on the line because Edwin pays dues. And every union is obligated to support, no matter where the person is. But the PBA has been slack in representing the blacks and Latinos within that immediate group. So now if the Supreme Court is saying you have the option, they can't force you to pay union dues. Unions now
are being busted.
Your right for negotiation, contract negotiation, wages, all that'll go out the window.
Yeah.
Just as they said a corporation is a human
taking their money
being,
away.
and a corporation has to be treated like a human being. That's the Koch brothers.
When you look at that, and I looked at it,
We've got
I
a
said,
minute to go, guys.
I said, well, the guys who want the unions to fail are the same ones. I'm not talking about the guys.
Right. Yeah.
Up here. So who want the unions to fail are the same ones that will fire the workers and reduce their benefits and salaries if they don't have a union. So if the guys think, they say, wait a minute, if I don't, today more than ever before, they have to be in a union. Today, more than ever before. The issue today with Brother Leroy is black survival in America.
Oh.
In fact, that's a book. It's written by Samuel Yet. And it's called The Choice, The Issue of Black Survival in America.
Well, I'll say it again. The God in me loves the God in you. And stay tuned for more of God's plan, because there's something coming up. Just keep the faith and stay faithful. God bless you. Power to the people. And for the Bronx audience, we've got a hell of a task coming up. November is election time. I want everybody to get out there and vote. Don't think you don't have a dog in the fight. Don't let anybody talk you out of voting. You know, but I don't care where you are in America. Just get out there, because the gerrymandering has been going on forever, and it's a fight that we're still fighting. That's what Obama and that's what Obama has been doing for the last 2 years, trying to get by with the gerrymandering. Pay attention to what's happening in front of you. Everything that happens in front of you is affecting you. Don't start paying attention.
Correct. And
being a child of God, you have to pay and keep the faith and just stay righteous, because we all love you. All right? Again, the God in me loves the God in you, and stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience, maybe in another month. I'm going on vacation. God bless.